important to make that distinction. All right. Global climate change, the demographic albedo effect. So what's this all about? Well, we all know that carbon dioxide has been increasing in the atmosphere, and along with it, global temperature. You can see that rising here. Okay, maybe you don't all believe it, but most of us do. We buy into that. So what does albedo have to do with this? So albedo is the whiteness of something. An albedo of 1 means that it reflects all the sunlight. An albedo of 0 means that it absorbs all the sunlight. And so things that are white reflect a lot of light, like ice. And so if you look at the global albedo, you see up in the polar regions, and the Arctic and the Antarctic, that the albedo is about 1, and then it decreases as you get farther and farther toward the tropics. Now the Arctic albedo in particular has been decreasing steadily, and I'd just like you to notice, these are data from Bastone et al. 2014. This paper came out on February 18th, so just last week. And of course, having such current data clearly makes this talk that much more valid. And so Arctic albedo has been decreasing as the Arctic ice has been melting. And so the increasing CO2 will tend to increase global temperature. The decrease in albedo due to the loss of ice should also lead to increased heat retention because the planet is absorbing more heat. And so these two things should work in concert to increase the global temperature. But we see the CO2 still continuing to rise, but the temperature has actually been level or decreasing for the last 15 years. Why? You know what's coming. All right, let's look at the albedo a bit more closely. There are these regions in the mid-latitudes, which I'm calling regions of anomalously low albedo, the RALAs. And you can see where they are. They're the US, all through Europe, and then over here in the Asian countries. So let's look at the populations of these RALA areas. So India, here's a typical street scene in India, China, Spain, and here's the US. This is an intersection down in New York. So what's common about all these RALA populations? Well, you and I both know the issue is that they all have black hair. Why does that matter? Well, if you look at the number of people greater than 60 years old on the planet, they're increasing approximately exponentially. Why is this important? Well, if we look at what happens as the population ages, here's an example. So this is the well-known actor Richard Gere as a young actor, and here he is now. And you can see that his albedo has gone from about 1 to 1.9. And this happens with women too, as it turns out. And so this increase in people 60 and older is also an increase in gray-haired people. And so what's happening is we're creating a demographic albedo. That we have more and more people reflecting sunlight due to having gray hair. And so back 20 years ago, 30, 50 years ago, there was less gray hair on the planet. Now we have quite a bit more. And so back then there was less cooling due to the demographic albedo effect. And now we have more cooling. And so if you flip that over, you really get the cooling effect of this demographic albedo. And it should have a net cooling effect on the planet. So now we look back at this plot of the global increase in carbon dioxide, and we include the demographic albedo effect. And you can see that this decrease in temperature for the last 15 years is completely explained by the demographic albedo effect. Okay, so going gray is good. The graying of the global population increases the global albedo closer to 1, and this has a cooling effect on the planet, particularly in these RALAs, the regions of anomalously low albedo. So what are some of the threats to this demographic albedo effect? Well, the first and most obvious one, and I think there's probably some people here who are guilty of this, is hair dye. Dyes tend to lower the albedo, thus negating the positive effect, and it's not just women. We see this in men too. Mr. Black, hair powder dye for men, with American peptide for hair loss control. All right, so that's just one threat to the demographic albedo effect. Here's another example of it, actually, the problems with hair dye. There have a well-known actor whose albedo was about 0.01. This was about 100 years ago, and more recently, still at 0.01. All right, other threats to the demographic albedo effect in general are black. So here, for example, is a Prius, which people might think is a good car for climate lovers, but this is a black car. It's absorbing sunlight. This is clearly a climate dangerous car. Other black things we should worry about: global warming hair. I think this is probably one of the biggest problems in these Rala areas, people with black hair absorbing more sunlight. So what's the solution? Well, clearly the solution is to have more white. And so here we have a climate lover's car that's reflecting a great deal of sunlight. Here we have a white building. This is a building wrapped in white fabric by Christo, a well-known climate lover. And the general solution is white hats. And I'd like to say I've started a whole campaign here that's been endorsed by a lot of celebrities. Here we have Brad Pitt, actor and climate lover. We have Prince Charles, heir to the throne, and climate lover, reflecting sunlight with his hat. We have Samuel L. Jackson, an actor and another climate lover. We have singers as well, Lady Gaga and Celine Dion, singers and climate lovers. And then Kim Kardashian, who knows what the hell she is, which is climate lover. And you can see an almost complete reversal of her albedo here from 0 to about 1. And so in conclusion, the demographic albedo effect is caused by an increased fraction and number of gray-haired people. Jules and I are doing our part for saving the global climate. It's particularly strong in regions of anomalously low albedo, where there's a lot of dark-haired people with global warming hair, and we encourage them to go gray. It can offset greenhouse gas-induced warming. I've already shown you that. And we must act aggressively to combat low albedo, and so the plan is to save the planet by wearing a white hat. Thank you. Happy to take questions. You're all wondering about your hair color now, aren't you? Yes?
Have you considered balls shining in?
So I've been wondering about this, and I haven't actually done the tests to see how much they reflect. I don't think their albedo is nearly as high as actually going gray or wearing a white hat. They're probably close to sort of a 0.5 albedo, but I used to have an albedo of about 0.1, and I've gradually been saving the planet by going gray. So I encourage the rest of you to, yes, Allison?
I wonder if shoulders also have a surface area facing upward. We thought about maybe cakelets or something.
Well, so this is part of my campaign. Clearly, if you look at these people, they are taking the whole saving the planet wholeheartedly, covering the shoulders as well as their heads. And you'll notice how big those hats are, too. They're very reflective. Yeah. Yes?
Have you considered talking to policymakers about carbon credits for individuals who actively take that step?
Well, I think that's a brilliant idea. You know, I'm mired in the science of this, and I'm really not connected to the policy people. So if there's anybody who does policy here, I would love to hook up with you, and I think we could do a good job. Yes? Beards and mustaches, you know, once again, if you have a wide-brimmed hat, you're probably okay. But typically, often the beards will go gray before the head, and so we might be okay on that. There's a question in the back there. Yes?
Do you think maybe some funding organizations would support an initiative to encourage Scandinavians to relocate to
I'm really glad you asked about that. And you may have noticed that Scandinavia is, in fact, in one of those regions of anomalously low albedo, and I've been a little worried about that. They do tend to be very blonde. I'm thinking that if we just had a really serious white hat campaign there, it might help. But we have been relocating blonde people to the Midwest fairly successfully, trying to raise the albedo there. But that's a good idea. Maybe send them to Asia and India, too. I like that idea. Was there another question back there? Yes?
I wonder if you investigated sequins. Like, I really like sequins.
That's brilliant! That's even even better than white hats if we wore mirrors on our heads. As long as you're not reflecting the sunlight down to the ground, it should work. I like the way you're thinking. Oh, yes.
What about the umbrella hats? Don't you think there could be something done with umbrella hats?
Well, sure, they're not just effective, they're stylish. I think that's an excellent idea. As long as they reflect a lot of light, and an umbrella hat with sequins is clearly definitely. Oh. Selective breeding experiments, they're ongoing, definitely. This explains a lot of the Scandinavian high albedo. You know, they were right there at the forefront of saving our planet from global warming, and you have to admire that. All right. That's enough questions. Let's see.